What's going on, guys? Marco here with Dynasty Nerds, and I am bringing you my Week 6 5 moves to make. All right, so let's jump into it. I've got two off the bat that are going to be quick and easy, and I'm going to break down exactly why you need to be making these moves. All right, the first one is sell your 2023 seconds, and obviously this is with the caveat of if you are a contender. If you've watched any of my videos, you know that I'm okay selling 2023 seconds if you are a contender. I know that the 2023 draft is looking like it is going to be just absolutely full of talent. There's going to be value in the second round, and that is not something to just, shake your head at. That's not something that you can just let go by. But if you are a contender, there are plenty of veterans that can help you win the title this year if you're a contender, and you should not be so stingy. You should not be holding on to those 2023 seconds, because you know what those 2023 seconds aren't going to do? They aren't going to help you win your dynasty leagues this year. So I am totally okay moving on from the 2023 seconds. If you've got specific questions like, hey, I'm looking at this veteran or this guy, is this okay to move, a pair of 2023 seconds or a single 2023 second for? Drop your questions below or hit me up on Twitter at Marco_14P, and I'll get to any fantasy, dynasty, redraft, whatever questions you might have, okay? The next move is acquire 2024 seconds. This is something I absolutely love doing in dynasty leagues. Go ahead and make moves for future seconds so that when you get to the 2023 season, that you will have a plenty of second rounders that you are okay making moves that you can trade away so that you can acquire veterans that can help you be a contender. One of the most undervalued things is future second round picks, 2 years down the road, even 3 years if your league lets you trade that far in advance. I absolutely love acquiring 2024 seconds, 2025 seconds, because the second rounder is one of those rookie draft picks that has a lot of value as you get closer and closer to the draft. And as teams get to week 6 through 10 especially, they know, hey, I need to start just accruing assets. So if you are a contender, you can do exactly what I said with my last move, and you can sell these second round picks for these veteran assets that are going to help you win that year. So acquire 2024 seconds. Heck, acquire 2025 seconds so that when you get to this time next year, if you are a contender, you can move those for those veteran assets, or worst case scenario, you have assets for the draft to help you continue to build, to help you to continue to add young assets. The third move that I think you need to make as we head into week 6 is a move that might scare some of you, but I think it's one that you need to kick the tires on. You need to really see what you can go get for DeAndre Hopkins. Do I think DeAndre Hopkins is not going to bring value? No, of course. I think DeAndre Hopkins is going to probably be a low-end wide receiver 2. Maybe he'll have some weeks where he's in that wide receiver 1 conversation. But what we saw at the end of last year is that he is not exactly the DeAndre Hopkins of old. Of course, he's coming in with fresh legs, plenty of rest. He is ready to play. He isn't missing time because of an injury. It's because of a suspension. And so because of that, there's people who are all about DeAndre Hopkins coming back. They've been holding him all year. So if you have a manager on or in your leagues that is thinking that DeAndre Hopkins is going to come in, he's going to dominate targets, he's going to be the wide receiver 1 for this team, I am okay seeing what you can get for a guy like DeAndre Hopkins. If you're a rebuilding team, I would acquire, a couple of 2024 or 2023 second round picks for him. I would see if you can potentially get a late 2023 first if this team is a contender and they're desperately looking for wide receiver help. There is a lot of opportunity here to trade away DeAndre Hopkins if you are a rebuilding team, and you can get plenty of assets here. And if you're a contender, I'm also okay trading DeAndre Hopkins if you don't necessarily need the depth at wide receiver, because I am on the side of firmly believing that Hollywood Brown will still lead this team in targets. Even if he takes a little bit of a dip in targets, I think Hollywood is the wide receiver I want from this team, especially for Dynasty, but even for this year alone. So I'm trading away DeAndre Hopkins if I can. I'm not selling him for nothing. And I think that's important to know, is you're not just selling him for nothing. Again, if you've got specific trade questions with Hop or any players on your roster, drop the questions below. I've been answering questions, all throughout the week. Or you can hit me up on Twitter at Marco_14P. Don't forget, I want to also remind you before we finish up here to subscribe to the YouTube channel you are watching this video on. We are getting more and more content every single week, and it is going to be content that you are not going to want to miss. We are helping you make moves, not just for this season, but to build your roster to build your lineup so that you aren't just winning in 2022, you're winning in 2023 and beyond, and creating that dynasty in your league that every other manager is jealous of. So make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel. And if you want 15% off joining the Nerd Herd, getting access to the GM tool, the extra podcast episode, use the link in the description below or sign up with promo code 14P and you'll get 15% off all of the amazing content that is only made for our Nerd Herd specifically. Okay, the last two moves here. The first one is don't panic on AJ Dillom and Romeo Doubs. Obviously, last week I said I think that both of these guys could have a really big week. Unfortunately, that wasn't the case. We're not right all the time, and that's okay because I think both AJ Dillom and Romeo Doubs are really important to what makes this offense go. Last week, they took a loss, and Romeo Doubs and AJ Dillom saw their least amount of work outside of, I think, week 2, when Romeo Doubs really wasn't needed against the Chicago Bears. But both of these guys saw the least amount of work in the entire season, and it led to a loss. They're very necessary for this team to win. AJ Dillom is due for an enormous positive touchdown regression. It's going to come at some point in the season. And Romeo Doubs, again, I think he's probably going to be in that 6 to 8 target range the rest of the season, with a couple weeks where maybe he is a little bit of a dud because of just the entire wide receiver volatility right now for this team. But he is probably the most talented young wide receiver on this Packers team, and I am not giving up on either of these guys in redraft leagues or in dynasty leagues. I think if you want to go make a move for Romeo Doubs right now, you can probably acquire him for fairly cheap after his down week. And I don't know how many more down weeks he'll have. Their schedule isn't super difficult. And again, when Romeo Doubs isn't involved, when AJ Dillom isn't involved, this team just isn't that exciting to watch. And they struggle, like we saw last week against a team that they should have beaten. And so let's go to our last move. And this is a guy who I was wrong on. I'm going to say it. I was wrong on him, and I'm going to talk about why in a minute. But Dameon Pierce has proven me wrong especially in this season. He was a guy I didn't think was going to be special, but he's done a couple things that were a little surprising to me. One, not surprising at least, is he's gotten a lot of the volume on the ground, but this is where I was wrong. He's gotten 5+ targets over the last 2 weeks, and that is something that was going to always be a game changer if he got it. I didn't think he was going to get that work, and so he seemed like he was kind of a touchdown-dependent running back. But he's not only seeing the volume on the ground, he's starting to see the volume through the air. So he is not as much of a touchdown-dependent option. That means that he is probably an RB2 with upside for the rest of this season. I am okay right now because he's heading into a bye week, and there might be people that are just like, hey, my team is set right now. I've only got 1 or 2 losses, but I'm feeling confident. Let me see if I can make a move for a guy who can help me win this year. If you're a contender, it really depends on what you can get for him. But if you're a rebuilding team, I am okay selling Dameon Pierce because I've seen some crazy trades where people are getting 2023 first-round picks for Dameon Pierce. And I don't know if there's I don't know if there's a single player in the 2023 projected first round of rookie picks that I wouldn't take over Dameon Pierce. And again, I will say his talent is evident. He's a good player, but it's likely that sometime in the next year or so, he is going to get a running back mate in this backfield, which is probably going to take away some of his volume. This offense and this team in its entirety knows that they have a long way to go to really get this team to a winning position. And that means that Dameon Pierce, while he is a really nice asset this year, doesn't have RB1 potential for the long term. And if you aren't an RB1 in dynasty leagues, you're hyper replaceable. RB2s are hyper replaceable in dynasty fantasy football specifically. Again, you're not selling him for nothing, but go see what you can get for a guy like Dameon Pierce. If you can get a 2023 first, like I said, I'm doing that right now. If you can get a guy like Joe Mixon and you're a contender, obviously you have to be a contender. Joe Mixon's been a little bit unimpressive of late, but I would actually say I'm okay making that move. And the reality is, with how good Dameon Pierce has been and all of the hype surrounding him, you might be able to get Joe Mixon in a 2023 second or Joe Mixon at a 2024 second, which I am A-okay with. So again, if you've got specific questions around what you should be asking for, and I didn't mention a player that you roster right now, that's great. Drop the questions below. Hit me up on Twitter. I will get to any and all questions that I can. And don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel. Join the Nerd Herd. Use the link in the description below for 15% off. Thank you guys for hanging out. Don't forget to be kind, do good, and I'll see you next time.